So many possible worlds, but we got this one. So many possible worlds, but we got this one.
So this has been adapted into movies. Of course, there was a 1963 movie. There were TV movies all throughout Germany, the Czech Republic, etc., or I guess Czechoslovakia at the time. It's been done as a movie called Hyenas, which if you want to familiarize yourself with this work, I should have said this at the very beginning, and you don't want to go and check out the play, which is the Joel Agee translation, by the way, you can get it on the internet. You can check out the movie Hyenas from 1992. Just type in Hyenas 1992 into YouTube, and you'll find it. And it's a Senegalese movie that is a very, very straightforward adaptation of
It
the visit.
friggin' rules.
Oh, but did you watch it?
I sure
didn't
did,
get around to
yeah.
watching it.
Really
It's
good.
so good.
There's some scenes that are almost verbatim from our translation.
yeah.
But it is so distinctly like its own thing. Güllen is based on Dürrenmatt's hometown.
Well, it's
ostensibly?
sort of based on Konolfingen a little bit, but it's also based on just towns that he would pass by on the train that had old, worn down rail stations that the express trains didn't stop
So
at.
sort of
anymore.
just like passing through, you see those towns and
Yeah.
you just like imagine what is the fucking deal with this place?
Yeah, and so the thing about Hyenas is that there really is this sense of like lived-in familiarity with the town, and there's a love for the town in it, which I think is one of the trickier aspects of this play to
Absolutely.
capture, that they're not just like these bloodthirsty monsters.
Yeah.
So this was done also as a Hollywood movie with Ingrid Bergman and Anthony Quinn.
This is wild.
Who are both very good actors. It's very well made for about the first 40 minutes. They changed the ending. That's all I'll say about it. It's not really worth discussing much further. There are at least 2 musicals based on the visit, one by Kander and Ebb. One is a Swiss-German musical. And guess which one is the bad one? It's the German one, surprisingly.
And the Kander and Ebb one got its premiere on Broadway finally in, God, when was it?
2015.
And I saw
starring
it with
Cheetah
the original
Rivera.
cast, and
Yeah.
it was beautiful.
It was even done as an episode of Rawhide. Just 2 final things on Dürrenmatt. Dürrenmatt himself was up for the Nobel Prize 6 times.
Holy shit.
Also, a year before he died, in 1989, he found out that the Swiss secret police had surveilled him for 50 years for his political dissidence.
Wow.
Oh my God.
This was at the same time these papers were coming out here at the tail end of the Cold War, and they found out that 5% of all Swiss citizens had files on them. Phones being tapped, hospital records being stored.
I'm assuming they were surveilling suspected communists, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Switzerland prided itself on its neutrality, right? For centuries.
Yeah.
And in World War II, that was no different. We are neutral. We are not engaging in this war. We're ready for it. We're training all of our soldiers. We have all of our bridges rigged to explode. They're still rigged to explode to this day. But we're neutral. Dürrenmatt and actually Max Frisch, another famous writer from this era who wrote the play The Arsonists, which if anyone ever watches Philosophy Tube videos on YouTube, she references that play quite a lot with her arsonist character. Dürrenmatt was very critical of Switzerland, as you can tell from the spying. He and Frisch were 2 of the first people to say, I'm pretty sure we weren't neutral in this, just given the whole existence of our banking establishment.
I was going to say,
Yep, there's a lot of Nazi
But that
gold.
didn't come out officially until mid or late 50s.
Okay.
And they were totally vindicated. And Switzerland felt a certain amount of guilt for that. And so they wanted to be like, no, this time around, as the Cold War goes on, we're going to be proactive. We're going to be the saviors of the world. We're going to destroy communism.
Right.
I think it's so funny that Dürrenmatt was being surveilled for 50 years, and still he couldn't write a poem incendiary enough to get him thrown in jail. That's insane.
Come on, man.
You know that was probably the last thing he was thinking of before he died. He was like, I never got a poem to get me
That was
into
like on
jail.
his bucket list. That was the one thing. I think it's interesting too, the context of this, right? Because Switzerland, with its purported neutrality, that has always been such a cornerstone of what the country is and how it sees itself, its own national identity. And there are questions of national identity, I think, that are wrapped up in this play as well. It is inherently political. And I think that as we start talking more and more about that, we're going to sort of see how some of these things come to the fore. Because at the beginning of this play, we of course start with guys who are train spotting. We love trains, don't we, folks?
We have Vladimir and Estragon and Estragon and then Estragon again. As you can see, Samuel Beckett's influence is very present after waiting for Godot's opening in, 1952?
I would argue annoyingly so with these guys.
With There's also just a baby crawling on the roof that's staring down at them as they do heroin.
This is not happening in the play. AJ's making a train spotting joke.
Right, I'm going down there. We're going to get some heroin and be fine.
So we have these four guys. Yeah, they're watching the trains go by, and they're mentioning every time an express train passes that used to stop there.
Right.
Yes.
Which is very poignant for me as someone who grew up in a Route 66 town.
Sure.
That'd
be a good adaptation.
Which before that was a rail town. So the name of this town is Güllen, which is a very strange regional Swiss-German word. It's something in Dürrenmatt's dialect, which is very different from Swiss, which is very different from High German, I mean. Güllen means liquid shit.
Broadway is back.
So you have these four basically vagrants watching the train because they don't have jobs anymore. No one has jobs. Everything, like the trash is piling up. No one's doing anything anymore. So they just watch and see how great this town used to be and reminisce on the old days.
There used to be hope, cash, things of that nature.
And you start getting like a real good sense for Dürrenmatt's rhythms too of dialogue here.
Yeah.
Like there's like a subdued like panic to everything in this dialogue at the beginning. Like there's already tension being built.
And so what they're waiting on then is the arrival of Claire Zaknassian, who we learn is somebody who grew up in the town. They still have fond memories of her when she was a teen.
Yeah, those who remember her at all, they're like, oh yeah, she had red hair, right? Yeah,
right.
She stole potatoes that one time.
Her maiden name was Clara Vesha, and she married an Armenian oil magnate named Zaknassian. So this name Zaknassian is based on three people: Basil Zakharov, who was a Greek arms dealer in World War I. He sold arms to all sides of the conflict.
Okay, it's kind of like Mother Courage again, right? It's like
in his day, he was the richest man in the world.
Okay.
And he had passed away in the 30s.
The Elon Musk of his time.
Yes.
Honestly, though.
So that's where the Zach comes from. The Nas comes from Aristotle Onassis.
Oh, interesting.
We all know Jackie O. Yep. He was a shipping magnate. He owned the largest private fleet in the world.
The Larry Ellison of his time.
Yeah. The third name is Kalust Gulbenkian, who was an Armenian oil magnate.
Oh, great. Okay.
He's the guy who basically connected the West to Middle Eastern oil, and specifically Iraqi oil. So these were all...
Good thing that never came to anything.
These are all the Europe's richest people, right? Here it would be like named for JP Morgan and whoever else. But of course, Aristotle Onassis was a well-known name in the United States. So Zaknassian is a billionaire. She has married a long string of husbands who, unlike in the Candor Neb musical, they don't die. She just divorces them.
Right.
Yeah.
But we'll get back to her in a minute. As we're looking at the town, everyone's getting ready for her to arrive. She's the next train that stops in the town is going to be this evening. So they're looking at like what they still have. They don't have the school bell anymore, so they're going to ring the fire bell when she gets into town.
Everything about this
choir,
everything about this scene is very funny because like it's very reminiscent of like Arrested Development to me because they're all just like scrambling to try to put something together. And it's like the sign, what's from Arrested Development?
Save our blues?
Save our blues, that kind of thing, where they're just like...
Save our Güllen.
Yeah, right. So, the sign painter writes, Welcome Clary, right, which is like a diminutive name. They're like, no, it's dignified. She's a billionairess. So write Welcome Claire Zaknassian. So you can imagine he does not have the fucking space left on that sign to finish that.
So he has to flip it over on the back.
It's a good bit.
Check out Banner, Michael.
Yeah, look at Banner, Michael. It really is. It's one of those moments.
And it's also like, this is the plot of The Merry Widow.
And Claire shows up.
Yeah.
She ends up doing so by pulling the emergency brake on her express train.
Everyone's still just like, okay, we're going to get the choir. We have to work on the dinner
it's
arrangements.
Like the next local train isn't here until later.
Then there's just a screeching stop.
Yeah.
And the train spotters are like, what the they were just talking about how like the Jews stole all the town's money. And then they're like, hold on.
Yeah, or they're like, they all have different opinions on what
is
going on. The Freemasons,
international communism.
Yep.
In Switzerland.
Well, I mean, it can't be overstated just what a shit town Güllen is at this point. Like it is, they are completely out of money.
Yeah. Well, it's not liquid.
Everything is being repossessed by the government.
Yeah, there's
Claire
a bailiff
is like their last chance.
There's a bailiff who comes in and he's like, we're going to start repossessing stuff. It's like, go ahead. There's nothing left. We just sold the typewriter. That's all that's left of City Hall. I mean, the Americans took our museum.
Right.
For me, like, I've traveled a lot for work, and sometimes I would drive through towns that would be just like this, where clearly there was something there once, something much larger, but the local economy has imploded for one reason or another. And so all that's left is just a couple things. Maybe there's like a bowling alley, maybe there's like a restaurant, and that's it.
So this train screeches to a halt, which is a big deal, especially in Switzerland.
Yeah,
and so
where the trains run on time.
So this old lady comes off of the train. She's like, I'm Güllen. Like the engineer is running after her. He's like, you can't stop the train. She's like, yes, I can. I just used the emergency brake. He's like, you can't do that. She's like, what if it's an emergency? Especially then.
Yeah.
She's arrived and no one is ready. So everyone scrambles and runs into each other and they hang the banner upside down and all that shit.
Yep, they have to run to get the choir in to sing her praises.
I'm picturing the choir from Donnie Darko.
So then the mayor improvises this little like, oh, welcome. We love to have you. And he's drowned out by the train leaving.
And which has an amazing punchline of he's like, welcome, Claire. And he gives an entire speech over. And then Claire just pauses and goes, it was a beautiful speech, Mayor.
She also, in order to get the train guy off her back, she just hands him like 5,000.
Right.
They don't ever actually say a unit of currency, which is really smart. She's like, give him 2,000, Bobby. Her butler's named Bobby. She named him.
Bobby the butler.
And she gives him another 2,000 to like start a Railway Widows Relief Fund.
And it's like, it's like this goes to the Railway Widows Relief Fund charity. And it's like, there is no charity. Okay, well then make one, man.
I just gave you 2,000.
I also took that as a threat that if you don't start it, I will murder you.
Yeah.
Well,
and make your wife a widow.
That's the other thing that's really important to note too, is that Claire is already, when she arrives, starting to act a bit odd. She's saying some odd stuff. She's talking about like the death penalty. She's asking the doctor how he prepares his death certificates.
Every time she's like, oh, hello, doctor. You give death certificates? Like, yeah. She says to him, she's like, next time you do it, say it's a heart attack.
Right.
She's being very off-putting.
And this is going to pay off later on too. Like,
and so she meets Alfred. Now, earlier on, this guy, Alfred, he's the local shopkeeper. Alfred Ill. The last name being the English word ill.
People love Alfred. Alfred's in line to be the next mayor of the town.
The thing is, when you own the one shop in town, you're a very important person.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
We get to like lines of credit a little bit later in this play, but I'm sure he's like, looked the other way sometimes.
Absolutely.
If someone owed him something, he get, fine, it's whatever.
You'll pay me the first of the
I'm
month
the
when
local
you
shop.
get like your unemployment
Which
check.
also means he's the richest person in town, right? He's the only person really scraping by.
And even then he's dirt poor.
And he had a relationship with Claire when they were younger. And there's a little conversation that comes up before she gets there where they're like, well, what happened to this relationship? Because obviously you married the daughter of the shopkeeper and inherited the shop. So he says to them, well, we were the best of friends. Young and impetuous. After all, gentlemen, I was a young fellow 45 years ago. And she, Clara, I can still see her shining through the dark on her way to meet me in Peterson's barn, or walking barefoot on moss and leaves through the woods of Conradsville with her red hair streaming behind her, slender, supple, delicate. What a ravishing little witch. It was life that separated us. Nothing but life. That's how it goes.
By the way, that's not true.
All that is bullshit. All
He's
that is
lying.
entire bullshit.
But this makes him the Great White Hope.
Right.
Because he's the guy who can maybe seduce her again and convince her to give the town money.
And so the
need.
town immediately then throws their entire support behind him. They're like, you're our guy. Fucking make it happen.
Like, honestly, their highest hopes are like a few 100,000.
Oh, yeah.
But they need millions at this point if they ever want to see the light of day.
Well, they want to restart the factories too.
Right.
Like this was an old processing town.
It was deindustrialized.
Yeah, so they had like a forge, they had the Wagner Works, they were making things. They had factories and raw materials.
Yeah, just to get them back to the glory days, basically.
Yeah. So they meet, and Claire, of course, immediately recognizes him once more. Yeah. They're like, oh, fuck, we've got this in the bag. He even like does this aside. I've got it in the bag.
They're calling each other their old nicknames.
Yeah, their old nicknames. And she calls him her Black Panther. And he calls her my little wildcat. And it's like they're in public and everyone's
gross.
like,
it's just gross.
He's a married
His wife's
man.
right there.
They're both old and decrepit.
Yeah.
And then we find out that she's like missing a leg because she got into a car accident. She has this like golden leg.
She looks like fucking Adam Jensen in Deus Ex.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
And she comes on with husband number 6, and she loves him because he thinks really hard and it makes him look like a demon.
Oh, I thought he was 7.
Is he 7?
I think he's 7 because it's 7, 8, 9. Yeah, it ends with 9.
That's right. So she's with husband 7. They're about to get a divorce. He's there to go fishing. That's fine. You know, the thing is, like, husbands are temporary, butlers are forever, right? So she renames all of her husbands to go with the butler, and she has 2 bodyguards, Kobe and Lobi, who she got from Sing Sing. These guys in German productions are always depicted with cowboy hats. They always put cowboy hats on them because Germans think of cowboys when they think of America. That's all that they have. Absolutely. Even though they're from Sing Sing.
Yeah, so did the fucking Icelanders. And I know that because their fucking act at Eurovision this year was them done up like the Dixie Chicks. It was terrible.
Yeah, a lot of cowboy hats at Eurovision this year.
They should have sent in another fucking synth pop group like last year. So much better. Anyway, we're not talking about Eurovision. Yes. We're talking about The Visit.
Also, then the teacher gets the choir up there and they sing and another train passes by so you don't hear them either. And Claire's like, well, you know, that baritone with the large Adam's apple was very good. She's very charming.
Right.
Like she's saying off-putting things every now and then, but she's absolutely playing the game right now and being very sweet. Of course, she can also say and do whatever they want and everyone's going to laugh because she has 3 billion whatevers.
Well, and this is also why in the Broadway production, Cheetah Rivera was so fucking well cast.
Right.
I mean, you know, she is always absolutely radiant, but also a little bit scary.
Yeah.
And so
she's everyone's glamorous aunt that you don't ask too many questions about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, her husband is Moby, this current husband.
He's the DJ.
Yes.
And then, so they leave for the forest and then we see 3 weird pieces of luggage. One being a giant black coffin. Another being a cage that contains a Black Panther. And then the other luggage being these 2 strange blind men with high-pitched voices holding hands and skipping across the stage.
Saying everything in unison.
Yeah, they're like, this place smells like cured meats or something like
Or more like unison. You know?
What?
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
They're Kobe and Lobi. Roby and Toby are the gangsters. Sorry, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't
They all
matter.
have rhyming names to go with the butler. So then we go to the woods of Conradsville, where Il and Claire used to fuck. When
they used to fuck in the woods.
I was going to say when they were teenagers. She was a teenager and Il was not. He was 20.
He was 20 years old.
This scene is really interesting because the way that it's framed up makes it feel like, oh, she really is just back because she likes him still.
Yeah.
And she wants to like...
It's depicted in this very fantastical, surrealist way. The 4 beggars become trees in the woods.
They announce
and
that they're
woodpecker and cuckoos.
Yeah.
It's very The Fantastics, like with
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's like, ooh, but are they going to get back together? Like, did she set this whole thing up to steal him from his wife?
But there's still this, like, even though on the one hand you're sort of thinking that might be the case, there's this really weird, uncomfortable undercurrent to it.
Yeah,
there's
like,
a panic.
why is there a coffin? Why is there a panther? Why are there these 2 like fucking mobsters here?
What the fuck does this lady want?
Yeah. Like there's something happening here. Why did she come back to this shit? Because she wasn't anybody. Her dad was an architect who built one thing in his life and died of syphilis in a madhouse.
Right. She married into
built
this wealth.
The public toilet by the train platform. And she said as a kid, she used to sit on the roof and spit on the people as they went in. Only the men, though.
And other than Alfred, people don't really, like you said, people don't really remember her. To the extent that they remember her, it's just that she was a girl who was around sometimes.
Yeah, she had red hair. They don't even remember. They don't even say anything like lecherous about her. It's not like, oh yeah, she was Clary.
The hot one.
It's just like,
I don't
you
know.
knew her, right, Alfred? Right. It's just like, that's it. We have this little moment also in the Golden Apostle while this is happening, which is the name of their hotel, which has seen better days. But the one thing important about it is that apparently Goethe slept there once. That's how important the town is. Goethe slept here once.
It's kind of like the equivalent in, if it were an American adaptation, would probably be like George Washington slept here, right? Like it would be that kind of thing.
In Gallup, there's a house that Eisenhower owned for a little while. So it's like, that's the house that Eisenhower owned.
Right.
Claire and Il, they go over some memory, and some of these are painful memories because she's like, yeah, and then you married Matilda Bloomhart so that you could inherit the Bloomhart General Store. He's like, yeah, but I mean, I did that for you, really. It's like, don't be a jackass.
And again, they're still married. He is still
They're
married,
still married.
to Matilda.
He has 2 children.
Right.
Two adult children.
And he's like, look, I'm poor as shit, and now
Yeah.
you're a billionaire-ess, so
Yeah,
clearly
look
I
at
did
how our
you
lives
a
turned
favor.
out. Yeah. Like you had the world ahead of you. Obviously, you gained it. And I'm a bitter, miserable old man. But I remember you're exactly the same cool hand. She's like, yeah, that's Ivory.
Yeah.
She also lost her hand in a plane crash in Afghanistan. She was the only survivor and she clawed her way back to civilization.
She is a force. Like
It's such an image, right? Because she's glamorous and she's a billionaire, but she also cannot die.
So many possible worlds.
All right, that's it for this one. This is a premium episode, so if you want to listen to the whole thing, you gotta head on over to patreon.com/worstofall. That's patreon.com/WORST of all. Yeah. We've managed to do this for a year now, and if you jump on in, you'll manage to keep us going for maybe another year or longer. Plus, you get access to this big backlog of episodes that we have, including our much coveted episodes about adventures in Odyssey. They're very funny, they're very good, and once you sign up, you can just search for them using the hashtag WitsEndlessSummer or podcast or whatever you need to sift through the different posts. It's all very good. We hope to see you there. See you next week.